right. How are you, sir?
I'm not sure you should ask that right now.
I understand. I understand that. Welcome to Instagram. Welcome to Instagram Live. So, this is your very first Instagram Live. Is that correct?
Did you the last one?
that's that's fine with me. I'll leave that for everybody else to deal with.
Yeah, I have a way of being blunt, but let's get this going. Get this party started.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Look, no, that's
how
all.
are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Hanging in there, and yeah, just finding ways to deal with the quarantine. But I'm all right. In my opinion, as long as people are safe and in their homes, and everybody's trying to make sure not to spread what's going on, I think it's in the best interest of everybody.
Yeah, I
That's my
agree.
opinion. Yeah. I'd rather be safe indoors and not working a little bit than to be working and possibly contributing to the spread of what's going on.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
I was really curious, I was really curious in interviewing you because after reading Notes and Tones and really falling in love with that book and seeing a similar pattern on some issues that, are still going on today. And, with you being one of the um, people that were interviewed in that book, I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on some of the things going on in the world. So, I guess my first question I'll start off with, but if you could talk about your relationship with Arthur Taylor, um, in general, and maybe around the start of that book, and how it developed from there.
Well, I don't know about the start of his book. I didn't know he had a project going, but we made some records in New York and had some gigs together. But my most intimate relationship with him that led up to this book interview, I was on the tour with Thad and Mel with a package show that included the Thad Mel Jones Band, and I was playing with Kenny Burrell, a group, and Joe Henderson at this package tour, and we were going from somewhere to Paris. We flew in, and the plane took such a steep landing angle that my ears completely stopped working, and I was in really bad condition. They took me off the plane in the stretcher and gave me some oxygen tank and all that stuff because I was really not in great shape.
Wow.
Uh, it seemed, as I found out later in the hospital, that the airplane took such a steep angle for me, as the guy explained to me in his very poor English and my very, very limited French. Somehow my brain got turned a little bit out of whack because the angle was more steep than my brain was used to being involved in my cranium scale, the skull. Anyway, they took me to the hospital where I had to spend 4 days. And Arthur Taylor, who I knew, came by the hospital every morning to make sure the doctor who was prescribed medication for me gave me the injections, make sure I ate. So the third day he came by and he said he noticed I hadn't had breakfast. I said, Arthur, the guy gets here so late every day that I can't wait and I just pass out. That's just not, So he said, okay, I'll take care of this. So he talked to someone and made sure they got the eating schedule better and the injections necessary. So I spent 2 extra days in the hospital. During this time, his visits, we talked about music and stuff. And this book, my interview in this book came at the time when I was wearing a bathrobe and some borrowed house shoes in the hospital.
Mm, gotcha. Okay. And then when the project was out, she was like, "Oh, that's what you were doing."
No, I didn't see it for a couple of years because I didn't know it got published. It didn't get much ink in the publishing magazines about new books and stuff. So I didn't really know about it until several years later. And then it was a compilation. I saw the book. It had all these interviews in it. All with people I knew, some I didn't know, some points of view I didn't know they had expressed those views. So for me, I was reading it for the first time. So I didn't feel anything other than what a way to kind of get your word out in public.
Gotcha. Yeah. Um, Going back to when that time, I think that your interview was in '71, but it was from like 1960. Most of the interviews were like 1969 to 1971, 72ish. But what are some of the differences and similarities in the music industry um, from then to now? You know, just some major differences, major similarities that you would see or you've noticed.
Okay. You know, if you ask me, Christopher, one question at a time, I try to answer before, but when you ask them double like that, I can't, I don't know where to start, and I don't want to
Oh,
spend
yeah,
time
yeah, I
trying
got
to
you.
make a choice. So I'll answer I'll separate them for you this time, but next time it's on you.
Yes, yeah.
I think one of the big differences in music in the industry now, as opposed to 40 years ago, 1970 to 60s, their lack of jazz on the radio. There may be two stations who are jazz type stations. I'm not sure I consider BGO with their very varied musical programs and audiences that I consider them a pure jazz station because they play other music. I'm fine with that. No, but it's not. It would not go to. It would not fit in the category of BLS years ago or WRVR. They played really good, really good jazz music. K Jazz in California is a good jazz station. Daddy O'Daly in Chicago had a great jazz station. There's a guy in Philadelphia who was around at the Temple radio station that had a good jazz station. Howard University had a wonderful jazz station. None of those places are still happening. Maybe K Jazz is, and because there's less opportunity for the music to reach people other than musicians who want to hear these acts that they can't find the records for or they don't know how to reach them. The audience has no chance to be updated or be kept in the loop as to who's playing what's the last record, who's the newest guys on the scene, who's left the concert. I mean, that kind of connectivity that we had in the 60s is gone now. The second big difference is there are fewer record labels now as there were 30 years ago. You sit down and count the ones that were there: Riverside, CBS, Columbia, East Wind, Fantasy, Capitol, the 4 or 5 Japanese labels, RCA Victor, Mercury. They all made Roulette. They all made wonderful jazz records. Right now, you have to go to the Bend to find what those records look like, because you don't see anyone carrying that thought. Creed Taylor was around, CTI, RCA Victor. There were a lot of record companies who were making this music available because they would turn out product every day, every hour on the hour, it seemed to me. I think the third major difference is that the club scene is different. We used to be able to plan a tour from New York to California and work all the way out. Detroit, Philadelphia, Chicago, Denver, maybe Houston, you know, San Francisco, Oakland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Santa Barbara. Most of those places don't happen anymore. And it's difficult to book a tour from New York to California unless you have enough work to make it worthwhile, because the airfare has really gotten expensive.
Yeah.
But those are the negative things about what has happened in the past 30 years to the music scene. On the positive side, there are schools who now have jazz on their program. They have jazz as a part of their presentation of their music programs to students. The separate entity. Eastman has a separate program. Indiana is a separate program. Rodney Whitaker at Michigan State has a separate program. Bob Hurst is a separate program at Michigan. 35 years ago, these programs did not exist. So they're turning out some wonderful players, because the people in charge of these programs, Bob and Rodney, to name just two, are really aware of how to make the music try to survive by having kids come and understand what it takes to make this music last more than 3 days.
Understood. Yes, sir. Um, continuing on institutions. What would you say are some of the advantages of teaching at an institution?
You have a kind of a controlled environment where you have guys who you're forced to play with in the school. You don't necessarily have to go out and make groups to play with, as we had to do in the old days. There are teachers theoretically who can explain to you the harmony and the chords and recommend for you teachers, if they're not themselves teaching you how to play the instrument better. There are kids who were your equal. You're not the low man on the totem pole when it comes to playing your horn, because everyone's trying to get it better in that school setting. You aren't necessarily worried about the next meal. You aren't worried about the next gig. You aren't necessarily worried about contracts. All you got to do is go to school, trust the teacher's judgment and his ability to help you understand what you're looking for, and try to get it done. It's a big boon to those guys. Back in the day, that was not the case.
Mm, okay. What would you say? Would you have any disadvantages about teaching at a university, or things that you wish maybe were different?
My situation is a little different. I just teach the private lessons. I'm not involved in the program in of itself, making the issue about what programs are taught, who the teachers are, the semester. I'm not involved in that part of the school anymore, so I'm not sure how that's progressing right now. So I can't answer that question.
Mm, mm, I got you. Um, well, I had get into another question that I had for you was did you have you ever had any opportunities that you passed up that you in retrospect wish you didn't pass up?
Every night, I wish I had played better notes than I did last night. Every night.
Hmm,
Did I miss any gigs I wish I had made? No. Done. I'm trying to find the best note for the next night. And that's my cry, that's my hue and cry in my students' class. That's my bane of my existence. Can I get better note selection? Can I get better pitch? Can I get better location? Can I direct the band better for me than the last night?
hmm. Got you. Yep, that makes sense. Um, I had a question from Milton Suggs, who's a
Oh
vocalist. I know.
yeah, I know.
Yeah,
How is he? I haven't heard his name and seen him in years.
he's doing well. He's doing well, and
Give him my email hello.
I'll definitely do that, no doubt. Uh, how do you feel your playing has evolved between now and the time where you were younger? Is there a difference in how you approach the instrument?
Absolutely. I've gotten better. I've gotten older. I've spent more time learning how the bass operates. I've been very active in playing with different groups to find out how they think music works, how they think the bass is important to their concept of their arranging or their band ensembles. I've come to understand how powerful the bass is and how much the bass player really controls the band. I've come to understand that if I play only one note a night, that note contains the following things. Intonation is in tune. That specific note is an important note. What's this note have to do with the harmony of the band, number three? What's the rhythm of this note? What's the dynamic of this note? And you multiply that note times two sets a night, that's a lot of notes. And that is a lot of power. I've become to understand that more and more and begin to play with that mindset as of some time ago.
What was the last performance that you did before the quarantine?
I mean, it seems like 3 years ago, but uh, I think it was, I did a duo, I think, a duo and quartet concert in Europe with an accordion player named Richard Galliano and my quartet, a separate band of Jimmy Green, saxophone, Irene Rosnes, and piano, and Peyton Crosley. That's probably my last gig since March 2 of this terrible time we're living through now.
Hmm. Got you. Um, going back to, I know you said that your last gig was in Europe. I always like to ask musicians who's been all over. What are some of your favorite places to play in the world? Cities or clubs or.
My living room. It's got a great sound. Only a select people are there at the moment. And it's a nice environment just to play without worrying about anything but playing for that moment. Having said that, most clubs offer good environments because the people go there with a certain level of respect for the music. And those clubs that are less inviting, I try not to do but one more time. And that's the last time for those places.
I understand. um, another question about the instrument, but have there been any physical changes that influence your perception and approach to the bass or to music in general?
The bass itself, yes. At 1969, I think, I went down to Cincinnati to look for an instrument. And the repairman happened to have he was I call it a scientist. He was always curious about how the bass worked and details like that. I would never cross my mind, but he was thinking about inventing an extension on the bass string, the E string, to allow the bass string to go foremost lower to a low C or a B, depending on how you tune the note. And he wanted someone who would trust his judgment that he would install this device on his bass, my bass in this case, with the caveat that if it didn't work, I have to go back down there with a bass, and he would replace the normal thing that he took off with what he took off. So he would restore my instrument. So he installed it this summer of '69 or so, and it's an extension that makes the low notes go down from open E to fingered E flat to fingered D to D flat to C. And I think, Christopher, that the first jazz recording of that sound was a record I did with Barry Harris called Magnificent. And I'm inclined to believe with my very limited research that low C encouraged electric bass players to start playing 5-string basses because it's a nice rich sound. It extended the range of the instrument, and you got the right note down there. It was really powerful. Mm-hmm. That's probably the second most important thing of instrumental changes that has affected my instrument playing style. The first thing is that now they're making better pickups and amplifiers. As you know, there's a whole concept of how the bass does need to be amplified, and that's not my what's the right word? Not my hue and cry. I'm on the other side of that. And I tell my students that I'm interested in having my great-grandmother, who's sitting in the seat X, row 25, with the third balcony, to hear every note her great-grandson is trying to play.
Yeah.
And I can assure you, even the most acoustically built halls, in theory, that's not going to happen. I don't spend my life and time trying to find the right notes to have it limited to just the drummer and piano player to hear in the bandstand. I want that notes, my choices, I want my notes, I want my intent to be part of the environment, to be part of their being in the club or the concert hall. I want my notes to affect their consciousness. I want them to raise their eyebrows like this and say, oh man, I need that. Because I do that, I have their attention. And I'm not sure with a non-amplified bass you have those kind of choices. Knowing I have that choice, it allows me to be perhaps more daring because I know that I'm going to hear the note first. Second, I know that someone else is going to hear it second. And there are people who are here along the way as the sound travels in the instrument in this facility, hall, the concert that we're doing. It's going to affect their thinking and it's going to affect the band. I like that kind of contract. I like that kind of influence. And the more I understand the power of the bass, I decided that I'm going to play like that from now on. That's B flat. That's F. That's C. Did you hear that? Yes, I heard that. That's also F. That's correct. I want that connection with the audience as well as the band. And I'm not so sure that when a bass player is playing unamplified, he can affect his band members as they're playing. No, I want to be a part of that sound.
I understand. Yeah, thank you for that clarification on that.
Yeah.
Well, I know we got a couple minutes left.
Yeah, come on, man.
Yeah. Could you talk about the 1964 concert, where with Miles, and he informed the band that they weren't getting paid at intermission?
Yeah, it was for the concert, actually. We walked on stage, we were about to get the sound check going, and he announced that he was doing the concert. We'd been off for some time, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and we got to sign the concert at Carnegie Hall, our first performance at Carnegie Hall with this band, and we had tuxedos, and we were really dressed for the night. It was really a grand event. And he announced this to the band that he's doing this as a benefit for some group, quote, some group, unquote. And we were playing free. I said, Mr. Davis, that's not going to work. And he said, why? I said, well, I don't know who this money is going to. I'm not sure. I would agree with them getting my pay for the night based on their policies, their posture, their politics. I don't know whoever they are because you haven't told us yet. Second, we've been off for 2 or 3 weeks, man. I think it's unfair if you expect us to play this concert and play it free because you decided to play free. That doesn't work at all. I didn't say it wasn't fair because that's not the issue. I think it's just not the correct thing to do with the guys who will go with you to the mat. We accept you're the band leader. Okay, lead us somewhere, but don't lead us to unemployment. No, I'm not in favor of that. And his friend was saying he was kind of watching it go down. He's starting to signify. You know that word, signify?
Yes.
Yeah, he was getting to that color, get that look on him. I said, oh well, oh no, wait, no, we're not doing it. So I said, I'll leave. I'll go home. I'm not going to do this. Just stop right now. No, there's no more. No, I'm not doing this. And he said, oh man, come on. I said, well, Miles, two things. Who's it for? This is for Chorus. You know that group of Racial Equality with Stokely Carmichael? Back in yeah. I knew those people. I knew who they were. They weren't friends of mine, but I understood their politics, and I would endorse it too. But I would endorse it because I want to endorse it, not because my boss for the night has decided he's going to donate my money. No, you can't do that. And so ultimately, they decided that I was kind of valuable to the band because I was the only bass player in the band, and they worked out they were going to pay us. Having said that, a year or so later, I'm in a record store and I see this record, Miles of Lincoln Center, Volume 1 and Volume 2, My Funny Valentine, and 4 more. Not only were they recording it, they didn't tell us about it, nor did they pay us. And the record is now on the market.
Wow.
So I had to collect the records, man, and pay whatever it costs and go down to the union and tell the union guy that, look, we made this concert and they recorded us, but they didn't get paid. That can't continue. Well, ultimately, they talked to somebody and they got it worked out. The money was not enough. It was the principle of the thing. How can this continue to happen to us? No, it's not okay. As it turns out, those are very important records. I listen to them once every 6 months when I'm feeling I need to hear how the band sounded back then, how the band grew from then on. We were on the right track. We stumbled on some nice ideas. It's unfortunate that the story is a part of that. Well, it is, so that's what that is.
I understand, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. Um, with everything going on in the world, and you know, Black Lives Matter being at the forefront, and all of um, the different lives that we lost this year. I was just curious, what are some books on Black history that you've read and that you thoroughly enjoy for anybody who is looking to get more into Black history?
Well, there's a great book by William Roden, a former sports writer for the New York Times. It's it's the history of the black quarterback, what the black quarterbacks went through to play professional football, as the start of as another view of racism in somewhere other than getting out of your car at night and being stopped driving while black. That it's called I'm embarrassed to say I've forgotten the title, but it's a really good book by Bill Roden, Rhoden.
I'll look that up.
Yeah, book by any book by Malcolm X on Malcolm X's life. I never saw him live, but I was familiar with his speeches and his point of view and his position in the community as a person who was always full of information that we needed to know, and how he was sharing his thoughts about us, how much help that what we needed to get squared away. There's a bookstore in New York, Michelle's, on 125th Street and 7th Avenue. It may be gone, but there was a black library, kind of before the Schomburg got on the scene in New York. And they had a wealth of black history, stories. They had a whole shelf of the black cowboys. People don't know that black cowboys invented a lot of the rodeo tricks that we see in the movies and on TV or wherever they had the rodeos with riders. I've always tried to read as much as I can because I'm traveling a lot. What I would do when I would travel so much more would I go to the city and find out what's the black newspaper in this town.
Mm.
Chicago Defender,
Yeah.
Michigan Chronicle, Pittsburgh Courier, Amsterdam News, Elliott Sentinel. I want to find out what's the black news look like in this city. If you only read the New York Times or the New York Post or the Detroit Free Press, you just got their view.
Yeah.
Now it's very interesting to find out how are my fellow African Americans who don't live in New York, how they're seeing the world evolve around their size, their society, their environment. What's their beef for the day? Do they have anybody who's got their back? You know, what do they feel about school, about education? What's the hot church for the moment out there? Yeah. Who's been interviewed for a club gig at the local bar downtown? I just want to find out how the black community was living outside of my bubble in New York, you know, outside my block in New York. So while I have a list of things I read, I'm constantly reading new stuff to find out now that they got good writers and the skill level of getting music, getting the printing out is more available. You got the media, the Facebook, FaceTime, and all those stuff. Writers are getting more places to get their stuff published. I don't think there's many black publications as there were back in the 50s and 60s. But there's some good writers out there now, and I look forward to, again, continuing my search to find out how black people feel somewhere other than New York.
Yeah, I understand that. Well, it is 1:29. I know I said I would keep you till 1:30. And I wanna definitely honor your time, but I just want to say on behalf of everybody, it was a pleasure to have you. Thank you for coming on and sharing your words with us and your wisdom. You being an elder statesman of this music, it's been an honor. I'm just truly grateful for having you on, and shout out to Barry Stevenson for
Yes.
setting this up for me. I appreciate you, Barry. You my man.
Don't forget to give Milton my regards.
I will definitely do that. And thank you to your team and everything. And thank you for your
You did a
words
good
again.
job, man. I was kind of back here. I was ready to go to the post office again, man, because I figured so I can get to talk to you is by mailing you a letter. This is trial and error, and they took care of it. I thank them too when we hang up.
Yes. All right.
You take care, man.
Yeah, we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Please.
All right. All righty.